Hello preppers, welcome to the video, which is the first of our podcasts, and we're going to do a series of podcasts where it's just a bit more of a casual talk rather than blurting out instructions or questions to you. So we're just going to discuss today. The first podcast is the whole situation with World War III and what preps you should be doing for that. So as you've seen across the news, across other prepper channels, we're practically in World War III now. We're moments, we're seconds from midnight, according to the doomsday clock. That's obviously takes into account environment and other stuff like that. But when it comes to a global conflict, there's already multiple fronts opening across the entire world. And with China and Russia now in like what seems to be a quite cozy alliance, it doesn't bode well for other countries. And what effect does that have on us as UK preppers is the question we're constantly asking ourselves. Obviously, things like a direct strike, the only way to prepare for things like that is build yourself a nuclear fallout shelter, etc. If you've not got the money or the space for that, which a lot of us don't have, especially in this country with our current cost of living, what else can you do? Well, the preparation I'm looking at is not for direct conflict as such. So I will be looking at the future, like if we were invaded, things like that. But for the purposes of this video and for the purposes of my preps at the moment, it's more the economic knock-on effect and the import-export effect that has. So World War III breaks out, Russia declares war on the USA, everyone divides, takes their sides, it all goes on. Hopefully it's a ground war and an aerial war, and it's nothing to do with nuclear weapons, because we know mutually assured destruction means nobody's the winner of that one. But if it does have to happen, and that war starts, there's a lot of supply and import stuff that we need to take into account. For those who know the history will know in 1940, a year after Germany invaded Poland and Britain declared war, Churchill came into power as the Prime Minister of the UK and started the Dig for Victory campaign. Now, the Dig for Victory campaign was launched in an effort for people to use every bit of land, scraps, gardens, allotments to grow fruit, veg, food, whatever they possibly can to feed themselves because of food shortages. This wasn't at the peak of the war. This wasn't due to all the bombing and the blitz. This was purely because of all the sanctions and everything that had stopped, all the stuff we import. And even then, as a country, then we were more self-sufficient than we are now. Now we import over 40% of our food from overseas. 20% of that is exported. We export 20%. So if you take 20% off that, that's still a 20% shortage. But it's different things we import and export. For example, it's 80% of our fresh fruit is imported. And 60% of that, 60% of our fruit is imported from outside of the EU. So you can expect all that to just, people who remember, or people who knew people who remember, or historians will tell you to get a banana or something like that during World War II was nigh on impossible. So there's lots of things to consider there. We don't even realize that 40% of our potatoes are imported. You think a potato is a homegrown English thing, but 40% of them are imported. 50% of our sugar is imported. 50% of our veg is imported. All these shortfalls on food will have the knock-on effect to the consumer. Now, I'm pretty sure all things like sugarcane doesn't grow in this country anyway, so all of that's imported, but these are the stats that are on government sites. So I've done my research on this to figure out roughly how much of an impact this will have. And it is quite a big impact. I mean, for people who do prep, if you've got a year, 2 years supply of food, great, no problem, wonderful. But things like fresh fruit, veg, anything like that, it's the best prep you could possibly do right now at this stage, which I'm starting to look at the moment, is to grow your own. Is no matter how small you start, I've got a tiny little yard at the moment. I'm looking for a bigger house. I'll be able to grow a decent amount, but even in a little yard, a couple of little grow pots make all the difference just to grow a few things. If you're living off dried food and tinned food, a couple of fresh potatoes, carrots could make all the difference on your diet. So growing your own is the way forward. And it's not a case that don't wait for the government campaign of Dig for Victory. This is something you want in place now, because as soon as we need it, you're going to have growing time. Yeah. So do your research on what's seasonal, what's best to grow, how to get started. There's loads of stuff out there. There's loads of information out there. And once you're in a process of growing, it then becomes self-sufficient because you can seed your own from your own crops and things like that. So that would be my recommendation. All the other foods, there's loads of imported foods. There's not fruit and veg, lots of meats, things like that. If it all stopped, the supermarket is going to have very limited, not just amounts, but limited options in there. So make sure if you are prepping, I mean, prepping for world, I assume you are. If you're watching this video, you should be, or you're thinking about it. But when you're prepping and creating your pepper pantry, don't just fill it with freeze-dried food from wall to wall. Although it's a great option for space and stuff like that, when it comes to what you like to eat, that's what you need to be preparing. That's what you need to prep. Whether you're canning your own, jarring your own, or whether you're just buying things that you do eat that are tinned and jarred, make sure you stock stuff in that you use. So I, for example, stock in, one of my things is sausage and beans, the little cans of sausage and beans. The kids love them. I don't mind them. I quite like them sometimes. And so we use them on the regular. So it's not just a case of buy 100 cans of that and leave it in a cupboard. It's getting constantly used and replenished. So make sure things that you do stock in, you do prep, is stuff you want to eat and stuff you're going to be happy to eat, and your family is as well. The other big effect of this is our fuel, like not just at the pumps for your car, but for gas supply, electricity supply, stuff like that. Apologise for the background noise. But any supplies like that, oil, gas, all this stuff, our fuel, we import £8 billion worth of fuel from non-EU countries. It's only just over 1 billion from EU countries. So we're already seeing the knock-on effects of this, the war starting, because Russia was our #1 supplier, and they're now down to the 6th highest supplier. But I don't know about you, but I've noticed a significant price increase recently, and obviously that's the cost of living. That's the knock-on effect it's going to have. But if it came to the point where we're completely cut off from these sources, we're not producing enough to be self-sufficient. We import close to £10 billion worth of fuel. We export 4 billion. So even if we don't export it, that's still a £6 billion deficit worth of fuel, gas, electric, fuel, diesel, everything. Yeah, at least. These are based off figures that are pre these conflicts. So these have got even worse since. So the fuel's going to be a massive shortage, which means blackouts. So we're always going to be prepared for a blackout. Heating. So be prepared to face the cold without central heating, and all the mod cons that you're used to. If you've got a wood burning stove or fire, superb. Anything you can become more self-sufficient in is going to prepare you better than just stocking up on beans, crossbows, and knives. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking at the moment. Anyway, that's the conversations I've been having with my family and the reasons behind us prepping. My main reason for prepping originally is solar flares, EMP, that kind of effect. So it's a lot of stuff like the Faraday cages that you've seen me create on the channel. But with the news escalating and the conflict escalating, I mean, that then preps are slowly converting over to me now looking at NBC kits, gas masks, iodine tablets. Literally, if you, it's a simple search on the internet for what you could need for fallout, for the after effects of any sort of strike, not direct, but nearby. That's all I'm going to say for this one. I wanted to keep it quite short for this. For a podcast, usually podcasts will go on quite a lot longer, but we will be doing guest podcasts, and the first one of them will hopefully be me and introducing you to my partner who I live with. She was not a prepper. I'm not sure you could call her a prepper now, but she's definitely a bit more warmed up to the idea and has even popped in a few suggestions herself. But I will save all that for the next podcast. Other than that, just bear in mind them figures. Go and have a look around yourself. Keep that in mind and make sure, can't emphasize enough, what you prep must be stuff that you're willing to eat all the time. Otherwise, it's going to go in a cupboard and it's just going to become redundant. Yeah, think of it like your fridge. So when your fridge starts to run low, you go out shopping, you fill it with fresh stuff, and you use up whatever's older first. That same rotation needs to be done on all your preps, cans, toiletries, everything. Everything you're prepping needs to be stuff you use every day, and make sure you're doing that stock rotation as if your whole thing was your own shop. Don't put the new stock at the front, put it at the back. Make sure the older stuff goes first. So, bit of a ramble. That's the podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts below. Let me know what you're doing to prepare. And let me know what you think about the current state. Are we in World War III? Is it something that is moments away? Or do you think, are you not even worried about it? Whatever your thoughts, let me know. And I'll see you in the next video or podcast. Bye.